You know that feeling when it's Friday, 6 p.m., and your phone buzzes with a plan. Something quietly tightens. Not relief, not joy, just a small, oh no. Psychologists don't see introversion there. They see a specific recovery mechanism that works differently in about 15% of people. If you're someone who counts down the minutes until the party ends before you've even arrived, welcome. You're about to feel very seen. If you've built your Sunday around the idea that no one will ring the doorbell, welcome. If your favorite version of yourself is the one that's home by 9 with the door locked and the lights low, this is for you. What you've been calling antisocial isn't quite right. There's something specific happening in your nervous system, and it has a name. This has a name in psychology. In 1955, Donald Hebb at McGill University described what he called the optimal arousal theory. The idea was strange for its time, but simple. Your nervous system has a personal set point, a specific level of stimulation where you feel most yourself, alert but not overwhelmed, engaged but not depleted. Below that set point, you feel bored, restless, understimulated. Above it, you feel scattered, exhausted, done. And here's the thing, that set point isn't the same for everyone. Not by a little, by a lot. Later, in 1997, Aron at Stony Brook University put numbers on it. Roughly 15 to 20% of people carry what she called sensory processing sensitivity. If that's you, your nervous system literally registers more input from the same environment. More sound, more light, more emotional undercurrent from the person across the table. More weight from a stranger's raised voice 3 tables over. It's not weakness, it's a different processing depth. Which means for you, a 2-hour dinner with 6 people isn't just a dinner. It's a 2-hour cognitive load. Your brain is doing more processing per minute than someone else's is in the same room. So when you get home and feel like you ran a small marathon in a nice sweater, you did. And your body knows exactly what it needs next. Quiet, familiar walls, a predictable next hour. Wild, right? Take Sarah, 32, editor from Portland. She spent her 20s feeling low-grade broken. Everyone she knew seemed to gain something from Saturday nights out. Energy, connection, stories to tell on Monday. She'd come home from the same night feeling like she'd been slowly leaking. By Sunday, she was sedated. By Monday, she felt guilty about being sedated. Then, in her early 30s, she ran a small experiment. She said no to 3 consecutive weekends. Not a boycott, just 3 quiet Saturdays. Book, bath. Long, uninterrupted stretches where nothing was scheduled and nothing was owed. By the 3rd Sunday, she noticed something almost embarrassing. She was funnier. She had more to say to her sister on the phone. She actually wanted to see her one close friend that Tuesday. Sarah hadn't become more social. She'd become fully charged for the first time in years. And if you've ever felt bad at people, that's usually what it actually is. Not a flaw. A battery that's been running at 12% for so long you forgot what 90 feels like. There's a reason people still read Emily Dickinson almost 2 centuries later. She barely left her father's house in Amherst for the last 2 decades of her life. She wrote nearly 1,800 poems in that upstairs bedroom. She kept her closest relationships alive through letters, long, precise, alive letters, to people she rarely saw in person. For a long time, the story about her was tragic, reclusive, unwell, wasted. The story now looks different. She wasn't hiding, she was calibrated. The world came into that upstairs room in exactly the dose her nervous system could turn into something. Everything else, the parties, the visits, the small talk on porches, would have cost her the thing she was actually here to do. If you've ever felt bad for choosing your room over a room full of people, you're in genuinely excellent company. She was the first celebrated American homebody. Not because she was broken, because she'd found the setting where a particular mind could finally speak. But here's what nobody says out loud about staying home. It isn't the absence of a social life. It's a different metabolism of one. Think of your energy less like a battery and more like a garden. Some people are watered by the crowd. They leave a party with more than they came with. You're watered by quiet, and the crowd is a heat wave. Neither garden is wrong. But if you keep planting your kind in the other kind's climate, of course nothing grows. And there's a physical layer under this. In a predictable, familiar environment, your body measurably drops its stress load. Cortisol lowers. Your heart rate settles. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that actually does the thinking you're proud of, has room again. That's why the ideas come when you're finally in the kitchen at 10 p.m. in old pajamas. Your best thinking wasn't hiding from you. It was waiting for you to stop running interference on it. So when you get home from the thing you almost didn't go to, and you close the door, and you exhale like you just walked out of a very polite airport, that isn't avoidance. That's your nervous system saying, "Thank you, we can process now." Or eat. Or nap in a small pile of laundry. Or think one full thought without background noise. Your choice. And here's the central paradox in the psychology of people who love staying home. You're simultaneously the least social version of yourself the world sees, and the most deeply connected version of anyone in your friend group. Ask you about your friends, and nobody gets 30 names. They get 4, maybe 5. But you'll know what your mother did in 1994 that still stings a little. You'll remember the exact phrasing a friend used at a funeral. You'll know which of your people is doing okay this month and which is quietly pretending. You didn't opt out of connection. You opted out of its performance. Small talk is a coin you don't spend well, so you save the whole budget for the 2-hour conversations that actually rearrange something. The world calls you antisocial because the world confuses volume with warmth. But sit across from you for one uninterrupted evening and anyone will notice. They've never been listened to quite like this. That's the trade. That's always been the trade. So the next time you cancel plans and feel the guilt kick in on cue, the little voice that says, "Come on, what's wrong with you? This is easy for everyone else." Try naming it more accurately. That's not loneliness. That's recovery. It isn't avoidance either. It's a nervous system doing its actual job. What you feel at 8 p.m. on a Friday inside your own apartment isn't a smaller version of what other people feel at a bar. It's a different feeling entirely, running on a different fuel, aiming at a different goal. And when the world tells you the shape of a good life is a full calendar, you're allowed to hear that and just quietly disagree. If that's you, here's the reframe. The same nervous system that makes a crowded restaurant expensive for you is the nervous system that catches the tone shift when your friend says, "I'm fine," and doesn't mean it. That reads the room before the room knows it needs reading. That remembers the small things a partner mentioned once in passing 3 months ago. That writes something on a Tuesday night that a stranger cries over on a Sunday morning. The traits aren't two things. They're one thing, and it just happens to also be the reason your Saturday looks the way it does. You aren't a broken extrovert. You aren't a failed party guest. You're someone whose depth costs upkeep. And your upkeep looks a lot like an evening in with the door closed. That isn't hiding from your life. That's how you refuel the specific engine you were built with. You're not antisocial. You're not broken. You're not bad at being a person. You're just calibrated for meaning, for depth, for the kind of thinking that only happens once the room goes quiet. In a culture calibrated for constant contact that calls that a personality. Your quiet Friday isn't a smaller life. It's a different one. And if you've been apologizing for it, consider this your permission to stop. If any of that resonated, subscribe. There's a lot more of these coming. The kinds of patterns nobody quite explained to you the right way. Next, about people who weren't hit, who were cared for, but who still feel something important was missing when they became adults.